Welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle, and this is a Jane Austen July inspired library haul. Now, there's a little bit of a story behind this. I was watching a video by Catherine, Taking Tea with Catherine, and she had showed this annotated Pride and Prejudice that she found at her library. And that inspired me to check our library's online catalog to see if there was an annotated Pride and Prejudice that I could read this year for Jane Austen July. And if you've watched my week one wrap-up video, then you've already seen this. This is Jane Austen Pride and Prejudice, an annotated edition edited by Patricia, Meyer, Spacks. And I have been loving reading this. I am almost done. And so that is what started my massive deep dive into the online catalog to see what they had that was related to Jane Austen. And there's of course all kinds of nonfiction, and I'm going to show some to you that I found. But what amazed me was the sheer variety of things that I found related to Jane Austen. And I was just super interested to see what is it about Jane Austen that inspires children's books, YA, and all kinds of different fan fiction and reimaginings and mixed sequels and retellings. It's unbelievable. So I'm not planning to read all of these books, but I got them from the library because I just wanted to just show the sheer variety and talk about that a little bit, because I think that's fascinating. I don't know that there's another author that has this amount of books related to them. And if you know of one, please let me know in the comment section, because I find this so fascinating. So there's two more books that you've already seen, and so I'm going to show them real quick. This is Celebrating Pride and Prejudice, 200 Years of Jane Austen's Masterpiece by Susannah Fullerton. And I've already read this one, and it was really interesting. And then the other one that I'm currently reading is The Genius of Jane Austen by Paula, Byrne, Her Love of Theater and Why She Works in Hollywood. So I'm not going to go into those. So what I'm going to do in this video, so that it's not too long, because I've got quite a stack here in front of me, is if it's a book that I plan on reading myself, then I'm not going to talk about it very much. But if it's a book that I got just because I was interested to see the variety, then I might mention it a little bit more. But first, I needed to show you there's one more book that I found from my own collection that I had forgotten about, and I don't know if I'm going to have time to get to it, but it is Georgette Heyer's Regency World, written by Jennifer Kloester, the definitive guide for all fans of Georgette Heyer, Jane Austen, and the glittering Regency period. So I'm excited to dive into that, and like I said, I'm not sure if that'll happen this year, but I did want to show you that one that I had. Okay, here we go. Are you ready? Let's start with Jane Austen inspired murder mysteries, because there are way more than you would expect. There's the series that I'm reading through by Carrie Beabrus, the Mr. and Mrs. Darcy series, and then these are the ones that I found. Now, of course, these are not all the books that our library has. These are just the books that I could get a hold of in time for this video. And this one, I was super excited, came in time. This is The Murder of Mr. Wickham by Claudia Gray. This one is brand new, just out this year, and I am really excited about it. It is set at Mr. Knightley and Emma's house. This one is a mixed sequel. It's got characters from all of the books, as far as I can tell, which is very exciting. Wickham shows up, he's not invited, and the two investigators are Juliet Tilney, the daughter of Catherine and Henry from Northanger Abbey, and Jonathan Darcy, the Darcy's eldest son. So I'm really excited to dive into that. I'm hoping that it's a really good, solid mystery. I also found Pride, Prejudice, and Poison by Elizabeth Blake, a Jane Austen society mystery. So that one sounded fun. In this ostentatious debut, antiquarian bookstore proprietor Erin Coleridge uses her sense and sensibility to deduce who killed the president of the local Jane Austen society. And this book is set in North Yorkshire, So this is one I am definitely going to read. That sounds great. Sorry, the window is open so you can hear the train even more. I apologize. There's not much we can do about that. I also found Murder in Abbot's Folly by Amy Myers, a Marsh and Daughter mystery. Now this is one that is further along in the series. It's a series, and I don't know how many there are, but this isn't the first one in the series, but this is the only one that has a connection to Jane Austen. And so I'm okay with reading them out of order, just to find out, you know, if I like this particular one. Curiosity about a murder that took place in an 18th century Folly draws father and daughter team Peter and Georgia Marsh to attend a summer gala in honor of Jane Austen at Sourdens, a fast-decaying Georgian mansion in Kent. But instead of enjoying a literary day out, they are thrust into a tense situation rapidly approaching boiling point. So what I love here with the Jane Austen mysteries is that you get some historical with, you know, Jane Austen as a character herself or her characters investigating, and you also get modern day ones with connections to Jane Austen. So the Jane Austen Society, or there's something about Jane Austen and her works that are included. And so yeah, I'm just fascinated. This is a Jane Austen encounter by Donna Fletcher Crow. English professors Elizabeth and Richard are celebrating 20 years of marriage with their dream vacation, visiting all Jane Austen's homes in England. But not even the overpowering personality of their Oxford guide or the careful attention of their new friends can keep the tour free from lurking alarms. When a box of old documents is donated to the Jane Austen Centre in Bath, Richard volunteers to help sort through it. Late that night, however, he finds the centre's director bleeding on her office floor. Could the valuable letter that has gone missing really lead them to new revelations about Jane Austen's unfinished manuscript, The Watsons? Ooh, fascinating. Okay, so those were the mysteries, and I do plan to read all of those because why not, right? That sounds great. I also found a couple YA that were connected, and this one is Being Mary Bennet by J.C. Peterson. I don't plan to read this. I don't really read YA, but I was fascinated to see that it was a YA, but with one of the characters that doesn't get a lot of attention. Mary Bennet doesn't get a lot of attention. She's from Pride and Prejudice. And the main character in this is Marnie Barnes, and she's convinced she is the long-suffering protagonist of her life, just like witty Elizabeth Bennet from Pride and Prejudice. But a main character isn't the forgotten middle child of their family, nor does their love interest see them as only a friend. And then a series of Marnie-induced disasters forces her to confront the devastating truth. Marnie has more in common with Mary Bennet, the utterly forgettable middle sister, than the effervescent Lizzie Bennet. So that was, yeah, that was fun. And then another one here is Secrets in the Snow, by Michaela MacColl, a novel of intrigue and romance. What if you had to choose between your family and true love? Jane Austen's family is eager to secure her future by marrying her off, but Jane is much more interested in writing her novels and finds every suitor lacking in one way or another. That is until the mysterious Mr. Lefroy arrives on the scene. Okay, so that was just a couple. There are actually quite a lot of Jane Austen inspired YA books, which I find really interesting. But let's dive into the children's books, because this is where I was amazed at the amount that I found, and there's two that have not arrived yet that I was really sad about, but I will definitely be showing them to you in an upcoming video because they looked so cute. But let's just dive into these. The majority of these are board books, which I find fascinating. And here we go. The first one is Goodnight, Mr. Darcy, a baby lit parody by Katie Coombs, illustrated by Ali Arnold. Isn't that something? So this is obviously a play off Goodnight Moon, and I'm actually going to read this, so I'm going to save talking about it more in my wrap-up video. But yeah, so we have Goodnight, Mr. Darcy. We have Little Miss Austen, Pride and Prejudice, a counting primer by Jennifer Adams. Isn't that adorable? It's so cute. I'm going to save this again for another video, but like, how adorable is that? Then we have another Little Miss Austen. This is Emma, an emotions primer by Jennifer Adams. So we have a counting primer and an emotions primer. They're so adorable, and I can totally see if you're a mom with a young one who loves Jane Austen, why wouldn't you read that? Because a toddler doesn't care what you read, they just care that you're reading to them, and so you can get this enjoyment out of like getting the inside jokes for these. Yeah. Now this next one is my absolute favorite. It is so adorable. But you're going to have to wait for my week 2 wrap-up video to get a close look at it. This is A Guinea Pig, Pride and Prejudice. I am not kidding. Isn't that the most adorable thing that you've seen? They're marketing it as a novel in 3 volumes, an adaptation of the original by Jane Austen. It is so cute. So these are real guinea pigs. Someone made costumes for them and then photographed them. And it is the most adorable thing I have ever seen, and I will talk about it more in that upcoming video. Next up, we have Great Illustrated Classics, Pride and Prejudice. This one came out in 1997. And this one is interesting because it's, you know, it's an illustrated children's classic. So it is abridged and also basically rewritten. Here is from chapter 1. So it's got these great illustrations. A gentleman comes to Netherfield. It is a fact everyone agrees that a young man with money should have a wife. So if you've got a child in middle grade, this could actually be a good introduction for them into the world of Jane Austen. Here's another illustration for you. And, oh, one more, because look at this. Look at that, Darcy. So there it is, the Great Illustrated Classics, Pride and Prejudice. And then we have Brave Jane Austen. This one is a picture book. Reader, Writer, Author, Rebel by Lisa Plisco, illustrated by Jen Corys. So there you go. A long time ago in a tiny village in England, there was a little girl named Jane. There was no reason to think she would grow up to be anything out of the ordinary. So yeah, this looks again just like a fantastic picture book. And so you'll get more information about those in upcoming videos. Now I've got more fiction, but it was kind of harder to categorize these ones. This is First Impressions, a novel of old books, unexpected love, and Jane Austen by Charlie Lovett. And this is one I plan to read, so I will talk more about this one. But inside it says, could Jane Austen have stolen the plot of Pride and Prejudice? Ooh, scandalous. And this one is Christian fiction, inspirational fiction, The Governess of Penwith Hall by Sarah E. Ladd. I thought this was interesting. This one is not as closely connected to Jane Austen, but it is one of those that is in the style of set in the time period. So maybe it's more accurately called a Regency romance. Cornwall was in her blood, and Delia feared she'd never escape its hold. It's set in Cornwall in 1811. And I always love books set in Cornwall. What is it about that area, you know, that just inspires these, you know, great stories? This one I was fascinated to see. This is Heartstone, All's Fair in Love and Dragonfire by Ellie Catherine White. This is basically Pride and Prejudice with dragons. So we get this great genre mashup where you introduce a Jane Austen story into fantasy. Like, I had never heard of this before, but that is amazing to me. Yeah, so again, this is one that I don't plan to read. I don't really read fantasy, but like, if you are into fantasy, how great is it to combine that? Isn't that fantastic? Now this one I am so excited about. It's so fun. Lost in Austen, create your own Jane Austen adventure. Isn't that fantastic? By Emma Campbell Webster. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a young Austen heroine must be in want of a husband, and you are no exception. Your name, Elizabeth Bennet. Your mission, to marry both prudently and for love, avoiding family scandal. Equipped with only your sharp wit, natural good sense, and tolerable beauty, you must navigate your way through a variety of decisions that will determine your own romantic and financial fate. Ever wonder what would happen if Elizabeth accepted Mr. Darcy's proposal the first time around, or ran from his arms into those of Persuasion's Captain Wentworth? Now is your chance to find out. So, this begins in Pride and Prejudice, but your decisions along the way will lead you into the plots of Austen's other works and even newly imagined territory. How fun is that? I totally loved the Create Your Own Adventure books when I was a kid, and so, yeah, I will totally be playing with this book. No question. Okay, now let's dive into some of the nonfiction that I have found. It's interesting because when you first think about it, you might think that the nonfiction is either biographies or scholarly works about Jane Austen's novels. And there is some of that, but there is also some really interesting divergence. So let's dive in. I have the Cambridge Guide to Jane Austen, edited by Edward Copeland and Juliet McMaster. Obviously, this one is a scholarly work. In the Cambridge Companion to Jane Austen, leading scholars from around the world present Austen's works in two broad contexts, that of her contemporary world and that of present-day critical discourse. Beside discussions of Austen's novels, there are essays on religion, politics, class consciousness, publishing practices, and domestic economy, which describe the world in which Austen lived and wrote. More traditional issues for literary analysis are then addressed: style in the novels, Austen's letters as literary productions, and the stylistic significance of her juvenile works. The volume concludes with assessments of the history of Austen criticism and the development of Austen as a literary cult figure. It provides a chronology and highlights the most interesting recent studies of Austen in a vast field of contemporary critical diversity. So this is one that I'm going to dive in and out of because that sounds really interesting to me. Then there was this one, fascinating. Jane on the Brain, exploring the science of social intelligence with Jane Austen, written by Wendy Jones. Doesn't that sound fascinating? A revelatory investigation of Jane Austen's intuitive ability to imbue her beloved characters with hallmarks of social intelligence. So again, this is another one that that I definitely am interested in reading because that sounds so fascinating. And then we have the Jane Austen Cookbook, Maggie Black and Deirdre LaFay. And isn't that a great cover? Authentic recipes associated with Jane Austen, now modernized for today's cooks, include buttered prawns, wine-roasted gammon, and pigeon pie. So, I just thought that it would be fun to flip through this and see if there is a recipe or two that I might have the courage to try and make. And then we have, this is one that's not connected to Jane Austen herself, but about the time period in which Jane Austen wrote, and this is The Trials of the King of Hampshire. Madness, Secrecy, and Betrayal in Georgian England by Elizabeth Foister. Sounds really interesting. Every family has its skeletons, but in 1823, the Grand Wallop family was about to share theirs with the world. The third Earl of Portsmouth was a peculiar man, but by most accounts a harmless one. An aristocrat of enormous wealth, he kept company with England's most famous names, inviting Jane Austen to balls and having Lord Byron as chief witness to his second marriage. For the first 50 years of his life, he had moved with ease in high society, but at the age of 55, his own family set out to have him declared insane. So that just sounds really interesting. A lot of these I want to read, but I know that I'm not going to get to this year because, I mean, I can't read that many nonfiction all at once. But what Jane Austen ate and Charles Dickens knew, from fox hunting to whist, the Facts of Daily Life in 19th Century England by Daniel Poole. That just sounds great. I love these books that get you into the lives of people during different time periods. Now we're back to critical analysis. This is Bloom's Modern Critical Interpretations of Pride and Prejudice. That's the book that I'm reading this year, so again, this is one that I will dip in and out of. It's the updated edition, edited by Harold Bloom. I'm a big fan of Harold Bloom, and so again, this is essays, etc. And I love literary criticism. I'm a nerd, I know. And so this one is Miss Jane Austen by May Lamberton Becker. It's actually Presenting Miss Jane Austen, and this was published in 1952. And it says, to the membership of the Jane Austen Society, this work is by its permission most respectfully dedicated by the Society's dutiful and obedient humble servant, the author. Now what's interesting with this one is I believe that this is a biography as far as I know. I haven't looked too closely into this one yet, but there you have it. If you want a biography from the 50s, you might want to try that one. And to go in a completely different direction, this is Jane Austen, 50 Cocktails to Celebrate the Novels of Jane Austen by Colleen Mullaney. Hilarious, right? It is a truth universally acknowledged that a person in possession of this good book must be in want of a drink. Now this book just made me giggle because they have all of these cocktails connected to the books and the names of them just cracked me up. So this one, if you're interested, has an introduction, Georgian drinks, barware, glassware, ingredients, syrups, methods, and then drinks specifically for each of the 6 novels. And then it ends with Jane Austen drinking games. So here you go. Let me show you, read some of the names of these cocktails to you because this just cracked me up. Okay, so we're going to start with Sense and Sensibility. We have Devonshire Dreamsicle, Hot Barton Rum, Just a Dashwood, Ellen Orange Blossom, Brandon Old Fashioned, Stubborn as a Mule, Steel Shooter, The Middleton Muddle. And then for Pride and Prejudice, we have Netherfield Punch, Short and Longbourn, Salt and Pemberley, Gin and Bennett, and this one's my favorite, Fizzy Miss Lizzie, Cousin Collins, Cherry Bingley, Weeding the Gardener. Whoever came up with these loves the puns. For Mansfield Park, we have Plantation Punch, The Price of Love, Fanny's Folly, Neither Norris, The Bums Rushworth, Pearly Yates. For Emma, we have Out of the Woodhouse, Strawberry Fields, What's in the Box Hill, Life's Not Fairfax, Northanger Abbey, Catherine Wallbanger, Gimlet a Break, Hand in the Tilney, Dark and Stormy Night. I mean, these are just They're just so fun. And then for persuasion, there is Bloody Elliot, He Came and Wentworth, You Simply Musgrove, yeah, Mrs. Clay Pigeon. And then at the end, they've got these drinking games. So, I mean, that was just fun to glance through. And if you're into cocktails, who knows? You might find something delicious in there. And then we have Jane Austen, The World of Her Novels by Deirdre LaFay. This is an essential reading for students of literature and of social history, and for all Jane Austen enthusiasts who want to gain new insights into her work. Eminent Austen scholar Deirdre LaFay presents a meticulously researched overview of life in early 19th century England. From foreign affairs to fashion, from transport to drains, she goes on to consider each novel individually, explaining its action, its setting, the reaction of public and critics, and Jane's own feelings about the book. That just sounds fascinating. And here's a fun one. We have Jane Austen Was Here, an illustrated guide to Jane Austen's England. How is that not fun? The back says it is a whimsical illustrated guide to Jane Austen's England, from the settings in her novels and the scenes in the wildly popular television and film adaptations to her homes and other important locations throughout her own life. So if that's your thing, I mean, and look at these end papers. This is also just a really pretty book, I have to say. So I'll show you a few of the pages. Winchester. So there you go. That is Jane Was Here. And then this one, I read this one last year actually, but I didn't realize it because I read a completely different edition. This is the Jane Austen Handbook, a sensible yet elegant guide to her world by Margaret C. Sullivan. So again, this is mostly just about etiquette and manners, and that was really interesting. Flirting with Pride and Prejudice, fresh perspectives on the original chick lit masterpiece, edited by Jennifer Cruzy. So we have articles by Karen Joy Fowler, who explores the genius of Austen's works, delights in their appeal to the truly feminine, and marvels at the timelessness of her work. Renowned historical romance author Cheryl Sawyer tells the little-known tale of Jane Austen's chance encounter with the infamous Lord Byron. We have someone who talks about the allure of Mr. Darcy, the implications of a new reality show, Pride and Prejudice. This was from 2005, so I'm curious if that ever got off the air or on the air. And someone who was a screenwriter for Buffy and Firefly sheds light on one of the most lightly drawn characters of Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Darcy's enigmatic little sister Georgiana. So there you go. We have Jane Austen's England by Helen Amy. And again, like, this is just talking about what it was like in England during that time period. So this is again going to be another great book to flip through. I may not read it cover to cover, but yeah, that one looks really interesting. Two more. Jane Austen's Town and Country Style by Susan Watkins. This is the world of Jane Austen, spanning the end of the 18th century and the beginning of the 19th, was a world of unsurpassed elegance, beauty, and refinement. Today it lives on, not merely in the imagination through the novels of this most loved of English writers, but concretely in the enduring popularity of its visual styles, from furniture and fabrics to interior design. So again, if you are, you know, if this is your thing, interior design, then this could be the book for you. I'm going to show you a few. It's got a lot of illustrations and pictures. Let's see. So there you have it, Jane Austen's Town and Country Style. And then last but not least, Dress in the Age of Jane Austen, Regency Fashion by Hilary Davidson. This lively book reveals the clothing and fashion of the world depicted in Jane Austen's beloved books, focusing on the long Regency period between the years 1795 and 1825. During this period, accelerated change saw Britain's turbulent entry into the modern age, and clothing reflected these transformations. Starting with an intimate perspective of clothing, the self, Dress in the Age of Jane Austen moves outward through the social and cultural spheres of home, village, countryside, and cities, and into the wider national and global realms, exploring the varied ways people dressed in order to inhabit those environments. Fantastic end papers. And so this has got, again, a lot of illustrations. So there you have it. That was my deep dive into our online library catalog. What does our library have that's connected to Jane Austen? And I was just very, very impressed with the variety of children's books, YA books, fiction books of all genres, mixes and matchups, and then the variety that there is to be found in nonfiction related to Jane Austen and her time as well. So I hope you enjoyed that little deep dive, and you're going to get a closer look at some of these books when I talk about them in my wrap-up videos. But that's it for me. This is a long video, but I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think about this wide variety. Why do you think that is? I am so curious. And I will see you for another video soon. Bye.